I do so many videos for young hurdlers that I thought it would be helpful and fun to show what the best in the world look like when they're hurdling. I have to admit, I even learned a few things that's going to change the way I coach. So let's check it out. For this, we're going to be looking at the finals of the men's 110-meter hurdles in Tokyo Olympics in 2020. I first want to check out their steps to the first hurdle. All of the competitors took 7 steps to the first hurdle, with the exception of Devin Allen in the center of the race. Now keep in mind that these are elite hurdlers who are all tall and long-legged, so 7 steps works for them. Most hurdlers take 8 steps to the first hurdle. This would include college and high school. And some younger athletes take 9 or 10 steps to the first hurdle. I'd like you to also notice that all of them strike the ground on the balls of their feet. None of them are reaching out in front and landing on their heels. This is much faster. I want to also point out that all of them took off from approximately the same distance, which is probably a little more than 6 foot away from the hurdles. Now this is important to note because the farther you are away from the hurdles, the lower of an angle it allows you to take over the hurdle. And a low angle means that you don't jump as high and you can get up to running faster when you land off the hurdle. I want to also use this angle to point out their lead legs. Notice that all of them have their heel tucked underneath their butt, which means that they're cycling their leg underneath them, and they keep it that way as long as possible. And then when their knee gets towards the hurdle, they unfurl their leg and extend that lead leg over the hurdle. Now let's talk about the steps between the hurdle. We'll use Pascal Martineau Lagarde from France as an example. So when his lead leg touches down, that's not considered the first step. The first step is when his trail leg touches the ground. So that's step 1, 2, 3, and he plants and he goes over the hurdle. So all elite hurdlers take 3 steps between the hurdles. Oftentimes in high schoolers, some of them are unable to do this because of leg speed or leg length or just development, and they need to take 4 or 5 steps. Above, I'm going to have a link to my video on how to 4-step and also how to transition from 4 steps to 3 steps. Now let's take a look at their arms. I'd like you to notice that as they lead into the hurdle and they put their lead arm out, which is always the opposite arm of their lead leg. So if their lead leg is right, then they lead with their left arm, that arm is always bent about 90 degrees and it extends out directly in front of them versus swinging it around from the outside. We'll look at some more action of the lead arm in a little while when we change angles. Now I'd like you to notice the trail arm. Notice it's also bent at 90 degrees and held behind him, and as he descends the hurdle, that arm comes forward simultaneously with the trail leg. As we come up to the next hurdle, we're going to look at how they can stay low over the top of the hurdle. Notice that their angles are forward. This is important because it gets them up to running sooner. Jumping high and landing over the hurdle just slows you down. This is referred to as a parabolic curve. An athlete should take the lowest curve possible, which means they'll go slightly over the hurdle and then down on the other side. One way to watch that is to pick a particular body part, usually around the hip. I like to look at the waist between their shorts and their shirt because it's easy to identify. If you watch it, it'll rise up some, but not very much. Even when they land on the other side of the hurdle, it doesn't drop very far. That shows that they're running fast. Notice that he reaches the top of the height of his jump, what we call the apex, right here where he's in front of the hurdle. And then as he passes over the hurdle, he's actually descending down on the hurdle. This is faster and allows him to stay lower and get to running sooner. And now we're going to look at what separates the elite hurdlers from the average hurdler. And that's how fast they get over a hurdle and down on the other side to continue running. One of the strategies is what Grant Holloway does. If you notice, he never fully extends his knee. It extends about 95% of the way, and that enables him to bring it down over the hurdle quickly. Most of the other hurdlers do the same thing. One notable exception is Hensley Parchment, which is ironic because he ended up winning the race. is that he actually fully extends his leg. It just goes to show that there's nothing exact in sports, and there's many factors that determine how good someone's going to be. But here's what I think is the most interesting thing that separates the elite hurdlers from the average hurdler. It's the position that their body is in when they land off the hurdle. If we look at Grant Holloway and notice right here when his toe starts to touch the ground and then he lands on the ground, at this point his hips are directly on top of his feet. The average hurdler has his hips farther back, but these elite hurdlers are up and running as soon as possible because they get their lead leg down so fast underneath them. If you notice, they all do the same thing. On this next hurdle, I want to look at the action of their trail legs and notice the similarities. If we look at the two leaders, you'll see the same thing. As they're approaching the hurdle, their trail leg is behind them and their knee and their foot are almost parallel to the ground. As they pull it through and start to descend the hurdle, the knee rises high, almost underneath the armpit, and when they touch the ground, they're in the same position with a very high knee. This is important for multiple reasons. One, so that you clear the hurdle without hitting it. Secondly, it helps bring your lead leg down fast, but it also sets up for a powerful step to the next hurdle. Now from the front view, we get to see some different things. We'll first start off by looking at the arms, and we'll use the athlete from Jamaica in the center as our example. Notice that his lead arm goes forward. It's bent at about 90 degrees, but stays in front of him. He doesn't swing it around from the side. And as he starts to descend the hurdle, he sweeps it back and his hand goes right past his knee. It's what we call sweeping the knee. That's important because it illustrates where both his knee and his hand should be. And if we look at his trail arm, we'll see that it's behind him and then it just comes straight forward as his trail leg comes up. So he's up to a running rhythm as quickly as possible. Now I'm coming up to the last 2 points that were really revelations. The first is something that I theorized for a while, and now I feel it's confirmed in watching this. We'll start off by looking at Grant Holloway's trail leg. Notice that as he brings it forward, he doesn't wait until it's straight forward before he starts to drive it into the ground. But he's not the only one. All of them do the same thing. That's important because I've noticed in so many reviews that I do that many athletes struggle to keep their lead arm in a good position. They tend to throw it too far back and it's straight, and it tends to pull their shoulder backwards, bringing them off balance. This is a good lesson. The last point has to do with their lead leg. Notice that all of the athletes bring their lead leg forward straight over the hurdle, none of them swinging it around from the outside. But one thing to notice is all of their hips are slightly rotated with their foot turned out. We can notice that with Grant Holloway here, but all the other athletes do the same thing. So I have to admit I've spent too many hours driving this point home with athletes, forcing them to bring their leg straight over the hurdle and getting on them whenever their foot is turned out. And I should be easier on that. So I'm sorry, Leah. And now we'll watch them to the finish line. If you'd like me to review or analyze your video, go to my website at acemethodcoaching.com.